G'day there, podcaster.
Yeah, and welcome to our extra chat here with Austin Butler, the man who plays Elvis. You'll hear in it, I mean, we really love the film. I mean, sometimes you tell them that you love it, but I mean, that was genuine. Like, we've been singing a lot of Elvis songs around the office since. I probably didn't need to give him a round of applause at the start. There was probably
it pumped his tyres, though.
It was a little bit much. Hey, you be the judge. You enjoy the chat.
It's one of the biggest films being released this year. And no one could have been cast better than this guy. A spitting image of Elvis Presley and playing the man himself, he stars alongside Tom Hanks in the upcoming Baz Luhrmann biopic, Elvis. Please welcome Austin Butler.
You ain't nothing but a
Austin, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we even start the interview, I'm not going to go for 12 minutes, but I'm going to give you a round of applause. Ben is as well, because we were lucky enough to see this film and we thought it was absolutely incredible.
Wow, thank you so much. That's so nice to hear.
There was reports of you getting checked into hospital after the filming for Elvis was done because you embodied the role so much. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh, turn it up. But then watching it, I'm like, oh my God, I get it. I mean, how did you get there, mate? What was the process of becoming the man, the myth, the legend?
It was a 2-year process where I followed my curiosity every day, and I didn't live any other life but that. So it was, I tried many things, and ultimately it was about finding his humanity. I mean, that was the core of it. That's what was fascinating to me, was stripping away how he's the wallpaper of society or he's held up as almost a godlike figure to certain people, or he's a Halloween costume to others. And so for me, it was putting his life in context and stripping all that away and then personalizing it for myself. So that was the core of it. But the tricky thing is that you also have this desire to get as specific as possible. So for me, it was like this back and forth constantly in asking, why does he move in this way? But then getting very specific about whatever movement he did, so it was just studying footage like endlessly. I mean, and many sleepless nights where I would just be feeling an incredible weight of the fact that, you know, his voice is so iconic, or any of those things. So then I'm listening to endless hours of his interviews and breaking down how his voice changed over the years and his movements and everything. And I just tried to leave no stone unturned and just went down the rabbit hole for 2 years.
Did you have access to like special footage that we'd never seen before, or were you doing what we were doing,
that was
watching
really
on YouTube?
cool.
You did?
I mean, there's a lot of amazing stuff just on the internet alone, and on top of that, then there's fans out there. I mean, I'd go on fans' websites and buy DVD things that they would have of like B-side things from documentary footage or that sort of thing. But then I was very fortunate because the people at Graceland were very kind and sent me some home movies that aren't out there.
Wow.
And so I got to see some of those were the most enlightening, because you're seeing him in moments that he either doesn't know that he's being filmed, or he's being filmed by somebody that he's so close to that it's just they're just on a Super 8 camera or something like that, and you get to see him just joking around, and there's a lot of glimpses into his personality that really open things up for me.
And that's the thing, because there's fans all over the world for Elvis. You know, people know the man. That's why it's such a tricky role to have. I mean, obviously the family have come out and said they've approved of the film, and we can see why. Did you ever get to speak to anyone in his direct family?
I met Priscilla beforehand, and we spent some time together, and that was so moving. I mean, just looking into her eyes alone was so moving. She's the woman that he loved for so many years, and that has been in love with him since she was so young. I mean, it's just amazing when you look into her eyes and you go, these are the same eyes that he fell in love with.
Yeah.
You know, and it's unbelievable. So, yeah. And then after the film, you know, we've spent more time together now, and just hearing how it's moved her, And also the moments when she says, if he was here today, how he would feel. That I just get chills. I mean, it's just, I can't dream of a better review.
Yeah, that's more than Rotten Tomatoes is ever going to give you. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, people always, art is subjective, but when you're talking about somebody's life, no matter what anybody says on the negative side, it's like that's what I really care about. So I'm so grateful.
Obviously, a big part of Elvis was what he wore, and this movie, absolutely no exception. The outfits and costumes were incredible. The whole time I was watching it, I kept thinking, surely Austin's going to take one of these at the end. Surely you're just going to pick one of them and put it in your wardrobe. Did you do that?
I've got a couple of things. I've got one of the black leathers from '68.
Nice.
That is because that's the one I'd pick. And you pulled that off like nothing else.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a pretty cool one. I was happy to take that home with me.
I like the idea of you just, going out for a coffee now, where squeaking past in the leather, and they're like, I think that's the guy who does Elvis in the movie.
Well, I'm 40 years old and looking back on my life and holding on to the glory days. Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. Like, this spans over his life as well, and I like how Tom Hanks is obviously Colonel Tom Parker. He sort of plays the manager, and the film's sort of from his perspective. Normally a lot of these films start with a kid's playing on the street, and then someone's like, Elvis, come inside, it's time for dinner. It starts from their sort of childhood, but this sort of spans the whole life, and you've got like doo-wop 50s sort of Elvis, and then in his later years he's obviously battled a little bit. Was there an Elvis, like a particular Elvis, that was harder to play? I mean, I know in that last sort of half hour of the movie, I mean, you had us all in tears because obviously the reality of it was his life became quite sad there.
Yeah, it was really, there's a lot of tragedy that is just heartbreaking. Every aspect had its own challenges. It was more the fact that I was jumping back and forth between. We weren't filming chronologically, so
right, okay.
I'd film a scene in 72, and then the next day I'd be in 56 or something, and that's grounding yourself in each time period. That was really tricky. So I would just. Every night I would look at what I was doing the next day, and I had this whole timeline on my walls in the house, and I would just really ground myself in that time. And but I also was more familiar with the Elvis of the 50s when I started, so I just fell in love with that 70s Elvis. I mean, it's just a glorious time. Late 60s, 70s is just amazing.
When he was really hitting his stride. You might be able to settle a score for us here as well, Austin, because Ben and I were watching the movie together, and near the end of the film, Elvis is singing Unchained Melody in one of his last ever performances, from 1977. There's like some Coke cups around the piano, and we couldn't work out if that was actual Elvis at that point or still you, because the transition was sort of there. We didn't know if it was real footage or if it was you playing him still. I think it's actual Elvis. Ben thought it was you. Who was it?
It's me up until the very end, and then it transitions.
So are you saying it transitions
incredible
within the scene?
Yeah, it transitions within the scene.
So it's technically both.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we started.
You see the moment where the aspect ratio changes.
Right.
We started the interview with this, and I think we should finish it, Liam, because
just another clap.
That is incredible.
It was kind of confusing me because I was like, and that's the thing. When you look at you now, like you're a good-looking guy, but like Elvis has such a distinctive look that it's hard. Like, and obviously you got you get your sort of brown hair, and you go like, I suppose if you walk past in the street, you wouldn't go, that's Elvis walking past me. But when you watch this movie, when you're in the kit, you got the hair done, and you pull it off so well, mate. It's honestly confusing.
Do yourself a favour. Make sure you go and catch Elvis. It's in cinemas June 23rd. Austin Butler, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show this morning. Thanks so much for your time.
Guys. Thank you. Have a good one.
And that's the end of our extra chat there with Austin Butler, the star of the new Elvis film. Pretty surprised they gave us the main star. I mean, normally it's like, like an extra or something like that.
Yeah.
But, to get the big cheese.
Would you rather have had Austin or Tom? Thanks.
I reckon, call me crazy, but I reckon Austin, because with these sort of chats, you've got to talk about the movie.
Yeah.
And if you've got Austin Butler, who plays Elvis, you're obviously going to be talking to him about Elvis. But if you've got Tom Hanks, Even though you know you need to talk about Elvis and you thought it was a great movie,
Yep.
you're probably going to want to talk to Tom Hanks about Tom Hanks being Tom Hanks.
Yeah, but then I would also be very happy with talking to Tom Hanks about Elvis. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, look up. Yeah.
Happy with both, though.
Happy with both.
Happy with both.
Where would you put Baz Luhrmann in the pecking order? Obviously an Aussie guy, you know, he's made all these great films.
I think he would be a great chat too. I think because he's got so much. I've seen interviews with him in researching for this chat, and he seemed like he'd be up for
Do you
most
know,
questions.
fun fact for you,
Yeah.
we've actually also interviewed someone in the film. Someone else in that film. One of the people in that film,
Yeah.
we'd also interviewed them. I'll give you a bit to think.
Was it here or was it at the J's? Or
It was at Triple J, yeah.
J.
And I only just realised. I was like, oh, yeah, we interviewed that guy.
Who?
Dacre Montgomery, who's also the sexy brother in Stranger Things.
Yeah, I know Dacre. So he was in it. He was in it. What is
I
his
kind of
role?
forgot he was in it. He was you know how there's that point where Elvis is under the Hollywood sign,
Yeah.
and then he meets up with those two like hippie
Is
guys.
that Dacre?
Yeah.
It is too.
So because he's from Perth or whatever.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
interviewed him before.
Comes across a little arrogant
Massively.
in real life.
In real life, you thought?
Yeah, in real life. Yeah.
All right, I thought he was all right. He's
No, remember-
arrogant in his movies.
Nah, I remember off air as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he does. If you look like him, you probably get away with being.
Oh, for sure. When you look like that.
arrogant,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. All right. See you, podcaster.
Ben and Liam is a Nova podcast. For more great comedy shows like this, head to novapodcasts.com.au.